Hey learners, welcome back to Edu Intern Voyage. Your learning journey starts.
Consumers equilibrium 10 mark answer. Consumers equilibrium refers to a situation where a consumer gets the maximum possible satisfaction from their limited income and given market prices. At equilibrium, the consumer has no tendency to change the combination of goods because utility is already maximized. The modern theory of consumer behavior explains equilibrium using the indifference curve, IC, and budget line approach. Meaning, a consumer is in equilibrium when, for the available income, they choose the combination of two goods that lies on the highest possible indifference curve, while still remaining on the budget line. This point ensures the best affordable choice. Budget line. The budget line represents all possible combinations of two goods that a consumer can buy with their limited income at given prices. Its slope is determined by the price ratio of the two goods. Conditions for consumers' equilibrium. 1. IC must be tangent to the budget line. 2. IC must be convex to the origin. 3. Consumer should reach the highest possible IC. Explanation of equilibrium. At any point before equilibrium on the budget line, the misses is greater than the price ratio. This means the consumer is willing to give up more of good Y for an additional unit of good X, but the market requires less. Hence, the consumer moves along the curve. At any point after equilibrium, the misses is less than the price ratio. The consumer is willing to sacrifice less Y for X compared to what the market demands, so they move back. Only at the tangency point both values equal, achieving balance and maximum satisfaction. 7. Price, income and substitution effects 10 mark. 1. Price effect. Price effect refers to the total change in quantity demanded of a good due to a change in its price, while keeping all other factors constant. When the price of a good falls, the consumer moves to a higher indifference curve, purchasing more units of that good. When the price rises, the consumer shifts to a lower curve, buying fewer units. Price effect is equal to income effect plus substitution effect. It is represented by the price consumption curve, PCC, which shows how the consumer's equilibrium changes with varying prices of good X while keeping income and price of good Y unchanged. 2. Income effect. Income effect refers to the change in the quantity demanded of a good due to a change in real income, caused by a change in the price of the good. When price falls, real income increases. Consumer can buy more goods. Quantity demanded increases. When price rises, real income decreases. Consumer buys less. Quantity demanded falls. Income effect varies by type of goods. Normal goods, positive income effect. Inferior goods, negative income effect. Given goods, large negative income effect that overcomes substitution effect, demand rises when price rises. 3. Substitution effect. Substitution effect refers to the change in the quantity demanded of a good when its price changes, making it relatively cheaper or costlier compared to other goods. When price of good X falls, X becomes cheaper than Y. Consumer substitutes X for Y. Demand for X increases. When price of good X rises, X becomes relatively costlier. Consumer substitutes Y for X. Demand for X decreases. Substitution effect is always negative, meaning, when price rises, demand falls, when price falls, demand increases. 8. Types of goods normal, inferior and given goods, 10 marks. Goods can be classified based on how their demand changes with a change in consumer income. The three major categories used in consumer behavior analysis are normal goods, inferior goods, and given goods. These concepts help in understanding consumption patterns, income effect, and the shape of the demand curve. 1. Normal goods. Normal goods are goods for which demand increases when consumer income increases, and demand falls when income decreases. In other words, they have a positive income effect. As people earn more, they tend to buy more of these goods. Features of normal goods. Positive relationship between income and demand. Represent better quality or preferred goods. Form the majority of consumer products. Examples. rice, milk, branded clothes, fruits, laptops, etc. When price falls, real income rises, and consumers buy more. This supports the law of demand. 2. Inferior goods. Inferior goods are goods for which demand decreases when consumer income increases. Consumers shift to better alternatives as their income rises. These goods have a negative income effect. Features of inferior goods. Inverse relationship between income and demand. Purchased mainly by low-income households. Consumption decreases when income improves. Examples: coarse grains, ration rice, cheap footwear, ordinary tea, old clothes, etc. Although inferior goods follow the law of demand, their income effect is negative. 3. Giffen goods. Giffen goods are a special category of inferior goods where demand increases when the price increases, violating the law of demand. They have a strong negative income effect that dominates the substitution effect. Features of giffen goods. Price and demand move in the same direction. Usually basic necessities for poor consumers. Lack of close substitutes. Strong negative income effect. Examples: historically, Irish potatoes during famine, coarse grains, bajra, ragi, and very low quality staples in poor regions. When price rises, poor consumers cannot afford superior substitutes, so they end up consuming more of the inferior staple, creating an upward sloping demand curve. Derivation of individual and market demand curve using indifference curve analysis. 10 marks. 1. Derivation of individual demand curve. To derive an individual's demand curve, economists use the price consumption curve, PCC. Step 1. Setup. Consider two goods, good X, on the horizontal axis, and good Y, on the vertical axis. Consumers' income and price of Y remain constant. Only the price of good X changes. Step 2. Plotting the PCC. When the price of X falls, the budget line rotates outward. Consumer reaches a higher indifference curve and buys more of X. When the price rises, the budget line rotates inward, and the consumer buys less of X. By joining the successive equilibrium points, we obtain the price consumption curve. Step 3. Deriving the demand curve. Take quantities of X consumed at each price from the PCC. Plot them on a new graph. Price on Y-axis. Quantity on X-axis. Connect the points downward. This becomes the individual demand curve, which slopes downward due to substitution and income effects. 2. Derivation of market demand curve. The market demand curve is obtained by horizontally summing the demand curves of all individuals in the market. Step 1. Individual demand curves. Suppose there are two consumers A and B. Both have their individual demand curves derived through PCC. Step 2. Horizontal summation. For each price level, add the quantities demanded by A and B. Example: at price 10 rupees, A demands 5 units, B demands 7 units. Market demand is equal to 12 units. At price 8 rupees, A demands 6 units, B demands 9 units. Market demand is equal to 15 units. Step 3. Plotting market demand curve. Plot total quantities at each price. Join the points to get a downward sloping market demand curve. Law of diminishing marginal utility. 10 marks. Meaning of utility. Utility refers to the satisfaction a consumer receives from consuming a good or service. Total utility, TU, total satisfaction from all units consumed. Marginal utility, mu, additional satisfaction from consuming one more unit of a good. According to Marshall, the marginal utility obtained from every additional unit of a commodity decreases as the quantity consumed increases, while other things remain constant. This means that the first unit gives the highest satisfaction, the second gives less, the third even less, and so on. Assumptions of the law. Rational consumer tries to maximize satisfaction. Homogeneous units, all units consumed are identical. Continuous consumption units are consumed without time gap. Constant tastes, no change in consumer preferences. Normal goods applies only to ordinary goods. Explanation with example. Suppose a person eats slices of pizza. First slice very high satisfaction. Second slice high satisfaction. Third slice moderate. fourth slice low, fifth slice 0 or negative, disutility. Thus, mu decreases with each additional slice. Relationship between Tu and mu. When mu decreases but remains positive, Tu increases at a diminishing rate. When mu becomes 0, Tu reaches maximum. When mu becomes negative, Tu starts decreasing. This relationship supports consumer decision making. Importance of the law. Basis of law of demand: consumers buy more only when price falls because mu decreases. Pricing policy: firms charge different prices based on diminishing utility. Progressive taxation: higher income groups get less utility from money, hence higher taxes imposed. Consumer equilibrium, achieved when mu equals price. Public finance, guides subsidies and welfare programs. 10 bases of difference. Cardinal utility. Ordinal utility. 1 meaning. Utility is measurable in numbers, utils. Utility cannot be measured, only ranked. 2 measurement of utility. Uses numeric values like 5 utils, 10 utils. Uses ranking like A, B, C, preference order. 3 approach. Quantitative approach. Qualitative approach. 4 developed by Alfred Marshall and classical economists. Hicks and Allen, modern economists. 5 tools used. Total utility, Tu, and marginal utility, mu. Indifference curves and marginal rate of substitution, misses. 6 assumption about money. Assumes constant marginal utility of money. Does not assume constant marginal utility of money. 7 consumer behavior explanation. Consumer equilibrium explained using mu and Tu. Consumer equilibrium explained using Ike plus budget line. 8 accuracy realism. Less realistic, assumes utility can be measured like physical units. More realistic, utility cannot be precisely measured. 9 mathematical treatment. More arithmetic, adding, comparing utils. More geometric, curves, slopes, tangency. 10 substitution concept. Does not consider misses. Uses misses, fundamental to analysis. 11 practical use. Suitable for basic theory but limited in real-life application. Widely used in modern economics and demand theory. 12 basis of demand theory. Supports DMU and equimarginal utility. Supports indifference curve and modern demand analysis. 13 consumer choice representation. Uses utility numbers. Uses preference ranking. 14 complexity. Simpler but less accurate. More complex but more accurate. 15 modern acceptance. Not preferred by modern economists. Accepted as the standard theory of consumer behavior. 11 indifference curve properties, 10 marks. An indifference curve, Ike, represents all combinations of two goods that give the consumer the same level of satisfaction, utility. Each point on the Ike indicates equal preference, meaning the consumer is indifferent between the combinations. To understand consumer behavior, it is important to study its properties, which highlight how preferences and choices operate. 1 indifference curves slope downward from left to right. An Ike has a negative slope, meaning if the consumer has more of one good, they must have less of the other to maintain the same satisfaction. This happens due to the trade-off between goods. It reflects the principle of opportunity cost. Gaining more of good A requires giving up some of good B. 2 indifference curves are convex to the origin. ICs are bowed inward due to the diminishing marginal rate of substitution, misses. As the consumer substitutes one good for another, willingness to substitute decreases. This convexity ensures that consumers prefer balanced bundles over extreme bundles. 3 higher indifference curves represent higher levels of satisfaction. ICs placed farther from the origin indicate more of at least one good and therefore higher utility. A rational consumer always prefers a higher Ike to a lower one because more quantity means more satisfaction. 4 indifference curves cannot intersect. If 2 ICs intersected, it would imply the same combination of goods gives 2 different levels of satisfaction, which is impossible. This violates the assumption of consistent preferences. Hence, ICs are parallel and non-intersecting. 5 indifference curves do not touch the axis. An eye never touches the x-axis or y-axis because if a consumer has zero quantity of any one good, satisfaction cannot remain constant. The model assumes the consumer consumes some positive quantity of both goods. 6 indifference curves are dense in the diagram. Between any two ICs, there exist many more ICs, representing continuous preferences. This ensures that consumer preferences can be studied in a smooth and detailed manner. 7 indifference curves show ordinal, not cardinal utility. ICs represent rankings of satisfaction, not exact measurable units. They do not reveal how much satisfaction but only which bundle is preferred. Conclusion. The properties of indifference curves help in understanding consumer choice, substitution behavior, and preference patterns. These properties form the basis for advanced economic concepts like budget constraints, consumer equilibrium, and demand theory.
If you are a BCom student who wants simple, clear, and reliable study content, subscribe to Edu Intern Voyage, like the videos, and start your learning journey today.